Hello and welcome to episode 9 of our STEM speaker series. Today, joined again by Mr. Chuck Pawlik and our very special guest, Mr. Tom Lucht, coming to us all the way from Seattle, Washington.
Hey, Tom.
Welcome, Tom.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, so we wanted to start, maybe if you could tell us a little about what you do now and how you got to where you are.
Okay. So I work for T-Mobile USA, the cell phone company, and I've been here for 16 years now. I'm a director of network technology, working developing new wireless technologies, like how the phones connect the network. So, for example, 5G, something you may have heard a lot about in the news, and that's something that I've been working on. My team has been working on for a few years. Enabled phones to connect more efficiently and faster and work better with the network. Like I said, I've been working it for 16 years, which seems like a pretty long time. When I went to college out of high school, I went to Cornell University and I went into the engineering school. I majored in engineering primarily because I was good at math and science, and my college advisor said you should go to engineering, so I did that. After that, actually when I graduated from college, the economy was kind of in a downturn. There weren't a lot of jobs, so I kind of took some miscellaneous jobs at offices doing sales and things. But I always was kind of drawn to the technical stuff, and I would get involved in the technical stuff going on where I was working. And then in the late 90s, there was this dot-com boom, a big growth of technology companies, new companies being created, new startups, they're hiring. So at that point, it was quite easy to get into technology because there were companies who would, hire anybody.
You're not anybody, Tom.
Well, no, yeah, that made me sound like a bad bet. But anyway, it was a growing area. A lot of people got into working in the technology field at that point. I happened to move to Chicago at that time. So I started working for a technology consulting company, and I ended up doing working in a variety of different technology areas. Like for a while, I worked on, like computers and servers, like you can imagine at a big office or even at your school, right? They have a bunch of computers, they're all connected to a network, they're all connected to servers, like the IT department, right? Somebody has to make all that work. I did that for a little while. I did some software development, writing software, writing code, building databases, kind of got a little bit into a wide range of technologies. Then I moved to Seattle. Both of these moves were not for jobs, more for personal reasons, but I moved to Seattle, and so I had to get a new job. And so I got into the wireless field. And this is when cell phones were pretty new. Not everybody had one, but they were out there. And I worked for what was kind of a smallish startup company doing wireless applications on phones for, the big, Verizon and AT&T. There was Singular back then and Nextel, if you remember those.
Right. Yeah.
And I only worked there for a couple of years because they were, they kind of went downhill. And so I jumped ship to my customer at that company was T-Mobile. And so I jumped ship to my customer, T-Mobile, headquartered in Bellevue, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. And now I've been there for 16 years. I've done a few things, but I've always worked on new technology. I've generally found in my career, I wanted to try to, wherever I went to go work, I wanted to try to be working on the newest cutting edge technology that they were doing. To me, that seemed like it's a valuable skill to know something about something that is new for that company, or even, if you have to leave that company, go find another job somewhere else. If you are an expert on something new and cutting edge and growing, that's kind of a good marketable skill to have. So way back when I started here 16 years ago, I was working on smartphones, which weren't even a thing barely back then, right? Everybody had flip phones, but smartphones were just for business people. But that's what I worked on then. I briefly, I left the technical field and I got into marketing and strategy. I would see these guys get up and give these presentations about what we're going to do in the future. And it seemed like they didn't have to do any real work. They could just make stuff up. And so I thought I could do that. I'll try that. Because half the time what they said would happen didn't end up happening.
Right.
But I found, so I was trying to, again, to get myself into an area that was more valuable, but I found, I did that for like a year and a half, and I found it just wasn't well suited to my personality. I don't enjoy brainstorming on a bunch of stuff that's probably not going to happen.
Sure.
Some people love doing that, and that's an important job, and there are people who do that, and we need those people, but it just turns out I'm not one of those people. And I guess that
sounds like most of the conversations Mike and I have,
about things that aren't going to happen.
Yeah, we talk, and it's like,
but but seriously, one thing I feel like I've learned about myself and about careers and working is that there's like the kind of thing that you personally like doing and enjoy doing. You might not quite know how to turn that into a job, or how that you can do that at a job. And how you always hear this term, like, do what you love. That's like, great. I love, eating ice cream and playing video games, so I want to do that. But that can't really do that, right? But I think a realistic interpretation of that is the kind of activities you enjoy. Like when you have a job, usually you have responsibilities that you don't really like doing, but you can do, and you can do a good job, and you do it. But then there's the stuff that you like, and you might find yourself working till late at night doing that stuff, because that's the kind of stuff that is fun for you.
Yeah.
So if you can find a job that has a decent amount of overlap with the stuff that is fun and enjoyable for you, then you're in a good spot. So like I said, I sort of tried to chase doing something that I thought would be more highly paid or more valuable or more prestigious, but it just didn't line up well with my own personal enjoyment and capabilities. So I moved to a different area, doing more less pie in the sky idea creation and more near-term operational work. And I ended up being asked to join this technology group about 9 years ago, and that's gone really well. And when I came over, they gave me a team of like 4 people. Now my team has like 30 people, and so things have gone well. Now that's generally what happens if you work at the same company for a while and you do a pretty good job. You're gonna move up. So that's sort of the story of my career development.
Great.
That's great, Tom. Tom, what kind of engineering did you do back in Cornell? Was it electrical engineering or?
No, I did applied engineering.
Okay.
But now that you mention that, in my group we do a lot of antennas, how the wireless communication,
Sure.
Radio frequency communication, which is what electrical engineers do. And up until a few years ago, we hired like only electrical engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So I now hire a lot of people right out of college. Every year, maybe 2 or 3 people get added to my team who are right out of college with bachelor's degrees. And it used to be all EEs, only EEs. But now, in the last few years, we also hire software developers. And that's kind of I was mentioning how the .com boom was a time when there was a lot of growth, a lot of hiring in technology. I feel like we're in one of those times again now. A lot of software, so we hire software developers. It seems like any sizable team at any company has their own little team of software developers. Everyone needs some software developers. And another type of engineer that we hire are like big data people, data analytics, data engineering. There's a lot of data available that can be mined and used and analyzed and turned into valuable business information, but it takes a special skill set to do that. So again, every team, 10 years ago, we had like one big data team in the whole company. Now, every team with 100 people has their own little big data group,
Sure.
So that's another I think those are two areas, I mean, software development, obviously, and big data, where there's a huge demand for people with those, with those skills.
So now you're working in obviously the mobile industry, but it started out with computers, right? So can you remember when did you first develop an interest in computers?
Yeah, when I was in middle school, they had a computer lab at my school, and as you can imagine, they were old dinosaurs compared to what we have today. But still, you could get on there and you could mess around and you could program and code. And I kind of like the fact that they're logical. They do exactly what you tell them to if you tell them properly. Yeah, and we had some computers. And then, as the years went on, we had different computers. I used to mess around with them at school. And I never had one at home, although I wanted one. So then, like I said, what got me into engineering was more my school coursework. I liked math, I liked physics, and those are the classes that I got the best grades in. So that's kind of why I went into engineering. I didn't even know what engineering was, to be perfectly honest, when I was a senior in high school. And then at college, I had a computer for like writing my papers and stuff. But yeah, I just sort of I liked them and they liked me,
Yeah, sure.
So it kind of worked out. And then, like I mentioned, I had a job like doing some kind of sales support function at an office in Stamford, Connecticut. But they had computers and they had servers and people would have problems, or they had like this special software, and I would be able to figure it out and fix it. So then my job within that company sort of changed to be, so it was a computer training company. My job changed to be someone who would make sure the computers in these training classrooms were set up properly and worked. I had no experience. That's another thing I wanted to say. I feel like nearly everything I've done in my career, technology, everything I know, I learned on the job. Like what I actually learned in school, in the books, in the classrooms is not, I'm not really using that so much as what I learned on the job. And you can show up at a job and not know anything about a certain technical area, and within 6 months you can know pretty much as everybody else there. But I think it's an inclination. You have to enjoy it. You have to like it to be able to learn.
Right.
You've given students that are watching this actually a lot of great advice. You've talked about doing what you like, doing what you love. You've also talked about being very open to other opportunities and options that are out there. So I think those are all really excellent advice for our students that are looking at different fields and maybe not really sure. Another thing that you've done is you've shown all the different jobs that you have done. And and vacillated through, and how they continue to build on your career. And none of them were bad. They were just part of the building blocks of where you are now. Even your sales job, your sales job is important because, now you lead a team of 30. There's probably someone in that team of 30 that is sales, and you might be able to give them some kind of insight or at least understand their job. I mean, these are all, I think it's really important for our students to really understand that, we scaffold our knowledge even as we grow older, and we try to use all of that. And a lot of what you're saying, Tom, is an example of that.
Yeah, Chuck, I totally agree with that. I mean, I've had jobs where I wasn't really sure how was this going to help me get to wherever I was going next. Or sometimes I made what's called like a lateral move, where you don't get promoted up.
Oh, I know that.
You stay at the same level, but you do something different. But over time, they do start to kind of pile up as your experience and your capabilities.
Yeah.
And then now I kind of rely on a variety of my previous jobs to help me with, one team that I have does software, another team does databases, another team does radio frequency, and sometimes I have to interact with the legal team and argue about, why we should or shouldn't pay something to somebody, so all those background, they do kind of add up. There's no like obvious here's the path to take. Well, I shouldn't say there is no, so maybe for some people there is, but even if you don't take a straight path, like, I'm 12 and I want to be an astronaut and I know every step I'm going to take between here and there. I mean, that does happen for some people, but I think for a lot of people, it's just more winding and they're not really sure where it's going to go next. But if you work hard and you learn and you keep your eyes open for the next opportunity, you just keep advancing.
Sure. So 5G, it's a done deal. Tell me about 6G.
6G is already being worked on. I mean, what these are is air interfaces and protocols about, how the phone connects to the tower. And it's largely software within the silicon chips in the phone and software running on the, those towers are basically antennas with like computer servers in them. As the technology advances, those processors can run faster and do more processes faster, as well as engineers kind of figure out how to use the radio frequency waves more efficiently and faster. When we went from 3G to 4G, no one was really even sure, why do we need these high speeds? I guess people will send pictures to each other faster because that's what people were doing with 3G. They were taking photos and sending them to each other. They didn't know, nobody knew that, once we've had 4G for 5 years, you've got Instagram and Uber and Facebook and, all those other apps, app stores, you can download apps, right? That they didn't really know that at the time. So now we're just launched 5G. It's kind of in that same point where it's not really any faster than 4G yet, but it's on the upward curve and will enable new user features for us that we don't even really know what they are. So 6G, I don't know, Chuck, it is true that the international standards bodies are working on 6G already, but what is it going to be? I'd say 10 years, about 10 years per G.
Yeah.
Okay.
10 years per G.
So
Yeah.
what company do I need to invest in? What?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when you do, here's my number.
I think all the smart money is already invested. So you gotta find something else. I'll let you know, Chuck.
Yeah.
Let's start it all. Let's do it.
I think another question people want to know the answer to is iOS or Android?
It's a matter of personal preference.
Yeah.
iOS is if you Apple phones are for having it be simple and easy. There's one button, there's one thing on the screen at a time.
Yeah. I could probably say that you have probably experienced using more mobile devices than probably 99% of the world, right?
That's true.
As
part of my job, ever since 2003, I've had a different phone every 2 months.
What phone do you have right now?
I have a Samsung Galaxy S20. But I've probably had, what's that, 16 years? I probably had like 200 phones.
Yeah.
Right?
Tom, the rest of the public, it's only a Galaxy S5.
Yeah.
The 20.
Right.
You're like 15 ahead of everyone. Right?
And I don't appreciate them because it's just sort of a perk of my job. I can get a new phone whenever I want. I try the iPhone, Samsung, you name it. I generally use the fancy ones, the high-end ones, because those are the ones that have the new technology that my team is actually working on. So that's my excuse to have the new phone.
So in those 15 years, what's the one device you think in its time was outclassed everything else?
I think the BlackBerry Pearl was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
HTC Dash, super thin with the QWERTY keyboard. The HTC, boy, I can't remember the name of it anymore, but it had the Qualcomm 6290 chipset in it. When smartphones kind of got thinner and thinner, there would be actually the Samsung Galaxy S3 was pretty groundbreaking as well. Yeah. All right. There you go. There's some classics.
My wife had that Hello Moto that flipped up and it was round.
The
and
Pebble, the Motorola
that-
Pebble.
Is that the Pebble? Is
That
what
was
it
round?
called? Yeah, it had like a round. And it was one of the first times that they were like, "Hello, Moto," and it was that phone that they started with.
So well, there's the Razor. Actually, I should have called out the Motorola Razor. That was pretty iconic.
I remember when the Razor came out, and that was the it phone.
Mhm.
And yeah. And now they
That
just
was
keep getting
huge.
bigger. That was the thing; they kept getting smaller and smaller, and now they're all getting
They
bigger
keep
and bigger.
getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, I think kind of a good class of phone is small premium. When it has all the high end, fast processor, good camera, good display, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be huge. Like this is a Pixel 3A, something like that. That's a good. But when we sell phones now, we sell, all the sales are either phones over $1,000 or like under $150. And there's a no man's land in between that. We sell hardly anything. Nobody really wants one of those. So that's just how it's been for a while now.
Okay.
But we're seeing foldable phones. It's kind of, phones have been looking the same forever, right? For years, phones just look like that, right? But now they're starting to fold, and have you guys seen that?
No, I haven't seen
glass displays. Yeah, I don't have it right here, but yeah, there's a few of those. Or it'll fold, and there's a screen on the outside, and then you open it up, and then there's two screens on the inside. So there's they're starting to get cool again.
All right.
But they're super expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's not going to change anytime soon, right?
Yeah, they're getting more expensive, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's so like, what's it? The iPhone 12 now, right? Or is that what we're on?
Yeah.
And
No, 11 that they launched last year.
It's the 11. Okay, and that's
September.
And then they have the Pro, iPhone 11 Pro, right?
Yeah, I think the highest end one.
And that's like $1,300. Yeah.
If you get like a lot of memory, the highest, most expensive variant of it. Yeah, I know there's another one, some Motorola one, like $1,700.
Wow.
It took a long time for them to break the $1,000 barrier, but once they did, they didn't look back. I think because people went for it, and they realized, oh shoot, I could charge $1,200 for a phone. Actually, here's something you may not know. Like over 95% of phones sold, people they don't pay the full price. They do monthly payments, like a car. They do like 24-month or even 36-month payments. So it's 25, 30 bucks a month or something like that. And so that $1,400 bill isn't as bad when you can pay it in monthly payments.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, then there
Tom,
it is.
Tom, I really appreciate the time and effort that you gave us today, and your words of wisdom. It's been really great.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for joining us. And
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Nice to meet you, Chuck.
Wrap.
Appreciate the opportunity. All right.
Yeah.